As long as I stand, Babylon lives.
All flames die. Ira, even yours.
Why fight? The dark always wins.
You are nothing. I am fire incarnate. I built worlds. Now I crush them. Run or rot. Makes no difference.
The storm was never gone, only waiting.
I am the end. You cannot stop me.
Once a smoldering ruin, Babylon had risen again, its walls reforged, its streets teeming with life. Yet the echoes of war still whispered through its alleys, and in the hearts of its people, shadows remained. At the city's edge stood Ira, a man forged in the crucible of battle. The cold that once gripped him had lost its power, no longer a torment, but a companion.
It no longer chills me.
With time, something else stirred within him. A warmth, not one that melted the ice in his veins, but one that coexisted with it. Compassion, once foreign, now rooted itself in his heart. The sword, one once a harbinger of destruction, had become an extension of his will. No longer did it strike with indiscriminate wrath, but with a justice sharpened by wisdom. The battle within him had not ended, but it had changed, and with it, so had Ira. Ira, the savior of Babylon, the warrior who had driven the Persians from their gates, was both revered and feared. His power, once seen as a force of cold fury, now inspired something different: respect, and perhaps even trust. He had been a shadow, a figure of legend more than flesh and blood. But as warmth stirred within him, he found himself drawn to their struggles, their joys, their grief. And in doing so, he began to change. She had lost her sons to war, her days now spent nurturing the last remnants of a life stolen by conflict. The children, those left behind by war, bore eyes too old for their years. Their innocence had been stolen, their dreams dimmed by loss. Ira, the man of cold fire, had learned a new kind of strength. Not one that came from the sword, but from the heart. A power that could heal, that could rebuild, that could bring light where there had only been darkness. As Ira's compassion grew, so too did his mastery of the blade. What had once been a weapon of raw destruction now moved with purpose, responding to his every command with an elegance that bordered on the supernatural. No longer did the cold lash out indiscriminately, freezing all in its path. Now it was refined, honed by Ira's will. He could command it with a thought, shaping it as a craftsman shapes steel. The people of Babylon, who had once feared the cold that followed Era, began to see it not as a curse but as a shield. The frost that clung to the city's walls was no longer a harbinger of death. It was a symbol of protection. In battle, Ira no longer relied on brute strength. He moved like a shadow, each strike measured, each motion purposeful. The blade was no longer just a weapon, it was a part of him. Ira's mastery was not just of the sword, but of himself. The cold that had once tormented him was now his ally, his strength. But with this power came responsibility, a burden he carried willingly. The wind howled through the battlements, cold and unrelenting. But it was not the wind alone that filled the silence. There was something else, something unseen, whispering at the edges of Ira's mind.
This is the Blaze Frost Celestial Sword, and this is the Black Iron Horse. These two weapons will help you on your path to justice.
The horse and the sword were bound to him, as much a part of him as the cold fire that burned in his soul. But doubt lingered at the edges of his mind, creeping in like frost before the dawn.
Why me? Why was I chosen to wield these weapons? How did I come to possess such destructive power?
He had once believed in his purpose without hesitation. But as the whispers grew louder, the questions became harder to ignore. What was the true purpose of this power? Was it truly meant for justice, as the voice claimed? Or was there something darker at work? Ira had always been a warrior, a man of action, but now he found himself adrift, trapped between purpose and uncertainty, justice and doubt. His mind wandered back to the battlefield, to the clash of steel and the cries of the fallen. He remembered the cold fury that had gripped him, the merciless precision with which he had cut down his enemies.
Justice! The path must be walked. The power must be wielded.
Why? Why was I chosen?
The voice spoke of duty, of justice, but never of reason. It commanded him to wield the power, but never explained its origins. It demanded his trust, yet left him grasping at shadows. He had always believed in his purpose, to be the shield against the darkness. But now a deeper fear crept into his heart. Was he truly a protector, or merely a weapon? This power had saved him. It had saved Babylon. But it had also nearly consumed him. It had driven him to the edge of madness, filling him with a fury that had once blinded him.
What is this power? Where did it come from? And why was it given to me?
The sword was more than a weapon. It was a masterpiece, its intricate patterns shifting as if alive beneath the cold glow of the moon, a thing of beauty and of terrible power. It could freeze, it could kill, it could destroy. Yet, in Ira's grasp, it had also become a guardian, a protector. The sword spoke in absolutes, in the cold clarity of right and wrong. But Ira had seen the world's complexities, the shades of gray that did not fit so neatly into the blade's unyielding nature. Where had it come from? Who had forged it? And for what purpose? The sword had become a part of him, and yet it remained a mystery. The horse was no mere steed. It was a force of nature, a being forged from the same cold fire that had birthed the Blaze Frost celestial sword. Like the sword, it did not age, did not tire, did not falter. The Black Iron Horse had carried him through every battle, had charged into the fray without hesitation. It was as much a weapon as the sword itself, a harbinger of destruction that had trampled the enemies of Babylon beneath its hooves.
Why me? Why was I chosen to wield these weapons? What is the purpose of this power?
The questions had haunted him for so long, whispered in the stillness of the night, like ghosts of a past he could not remember. The voice in his mind spoke of justice, of duty, but never of reason. Like the sword, the horse offered no answers, only the silent companionship that had always been its gift. And for now, that would have to be enough. He had always been a man of action, a warrior who lived by the sword and the strength of his convictions. But now, doubt gnawed at him like an unrelenting specter. The path ahead was no longer clear. Was justice simply the act of cutting down those who threatened the peace? Or was there more to it than steel and blood? And if there was, what role did he play in a world where justice was never black and white? He had been chosen of that, he was certain. But chosen for what? A protector, a warrior, a judge? Or was there something deeper, something he had yet to understand? The horse, like the sword, was a reminder of the power bestowed upon him, a power he still struggled to comprehend. The voice in his mind whispered still, urging him forward, telling him that this power was meant for justice, for the weak, for the innocent. But the questions refused to be silenced. The questions still lingered, their weight pressing upon him. But as he stood there, watching the sun rise, a quiet calm settled over him. The doubts, the uncertainties, they remained, but they no longer consumed him. He had come to understand that his power was not something to be feared, but something to be wielded with care. The Blaze Frost celestial sword, the Black Iron Horse, tools, yes, but also symbols. They embodied the balance within him, fire and ice, destruction and protection, death and life. The voice in his mind, the power within him, they were not masters, but guides. His choices were his own. His path, uncertain as it was, belonged to him alone. He would continue to protect the weak, to defend the innocent, to fight for justice, whatever that might mean. The path ahead was uncertain. The answers remained elusive, but for now, he had all that he needed.